What is up, everyone? So I've been getting a lot of feedback on how did I create this layout, what AI tool did I use to create it, and unfortunately I did not use any AI tools. There could be some out there that do this, but I do not know of them. It'd be awesome if there were some, but kind of I hope not. So I did the old school way, Adobe Photoshop. I'm going to show you how I created this. First thing I did, I go to tag, I look up my card, and I go download the images. I love that they give you, full res images. I'm going to download the 19 by 6 or 9 by 16 image. I've already saved these. Let's go ahead and save them again. Front and back. I won't do the back in this demonstration. So now that we have our cards downloaded, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this from scratch. I have a template that I use for all of my card layouts, but let's do a new one. So first thing you're going to do is File, New. I'm going to create one that's 1080 by 1080 pixels, 300 resolution. That's a square image, good resolution. So now that we have this, now we're going to place the card. I would typically use hotkeys, but for this, example, I'm going to do the old school through the menu system. So File, Place Embed. Let's find the card that we downloaded. It's right here. All right. Now that the card is here, I'm going to hit Enter to place it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rasterize the layer that enables me to edit the card. So on the layer, right click, rasterize layer. Now the card can be edited. Now that we got our card placed here, let me go ahead and show you, why I do the things I do. So with this layer selected, I'm going to duplicate it. Right click, duplicate. You can do a Command J. So now that we have a second layer, let's just go ahead and scale this up really quick. All right, let's click down and dirty. So background layer is there, front card is here. To get the overlay, this black to go away, it's very simple. With this top layer selected, which is the card, I'm going to go to the layer style here. I'm going to go to screen. But what you're going to notice is it takes out the black of the card as well. So we're going to, have to do another step to eliminate that. So let me Control Z. This top layer selected. I'm going to select the cards now, essentially, and make them their own layer. So with the card selected, I'm going to go to my pen tool. I'm going to hit P. You can find it over here. Pen tool. And let's select the card as tight as possible. If I was doing this for a real post, I'd probably be a little bit slower. But for the sake of this tutorial, do that. Now that our path is closed, I'm going to right click and make selection. I want to keep my feather radius at 0, which is, will the edge be feathered or not? I don't want that because I want it to be sharp and crisp. So now once it's selected, you can see these little marching ants. They're kind of marching along. And with that selected, I'm going to copy. So Control C, Control V, copy paste, might be Command C or V. So now we have the card by itself. Undo that to put it back in its place. Let's go ahead and delete this back layer. So now that we have the top card selected, let's go ahead and do this bottom portion, the reflection of the card. So click back onto this layer, get back to the pen tool, which is P. Select this bottom layer. Obviously be as tight as you can be. Make selection, right click, make selection, 0 radius, Control C, Control V, copy paste. So now you'll notice that now we have the cards. So that's what I wanted. I wanted these cards on their own layer. Let's go back to this slab image. Now to create the background, so we're not so much worried about the black right yet. Let's just select the card. All right. I'm going to hit Control J, which is duplicate layer, where you can go over here and right click, duplicate. Now with this layer, I'm going to drag it to the very back. And when it's at the back, I'm going to scale it up. I'm going to hold the Alt key. All right. So let's kind of figure out, I want the horizon of the card to kind of match with the horizon of this, so let's bring it down a little bit. Scale it in a little more. So some of this. All right, that's looking good. So now that we have our background, I still got some work to do on that. If you notice my Instagram layout, go back. So we kind of have a reflection on the background as well. So let's go ahead, turn off this layer, turn these cards off. Let's focus on the background. All right. So now that I have this, what I'm going to do is I want to create the mirror effect. I'm going to go ahead with this layer selected. I'm going to hit my marquee tool. So it's up here at the top left, the regular marquee. It's going to create a square. So I'm going to click down here and drag up until I get to that horizon line that I like. So right there. Now I'm going to delete that part of the card. And now with this layer selected, I'm going to go back to my marquee tool, and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to come from the top down to about, here. And I'm going to do a copy paste again. Copy paste. All right, so now that we've got two of them essentially selected, I'm going to go to this bottom one. Could be the top, it doesn't matter. And let's do the top, I'm sorry. And I'm going to drag this down, but you see how it scales like that? Let's hold the shift key. So now we're only doing is dragging the top. Drag this down to get a nice reflection. Hit the enter key. All right. So you go back to this layout. You see how we have a little bit of a black gradient there. You could do this, several ways, but what I like to do is I'm going to drag this bottom layer below the top layer. So on this top layer now, I'm going to hit my brush tool, which is B. All right. And I'm going to make sure that my color is black. And I'm going to right click to bring up my settings. I want the hardness to be all the way to 0. That's going to create a nice soft feather. All right. Let's turn that bottom layer off. So now that layer is selected. Let's just go ahead and paint across the bottom here. I'm going to hold the shift key, and that's going to keep it nice and straight. All right. Let's turn this layer back on. So that's kind of already looking all right, not too bad. But I want to create like a little bit of a vignette. So with this bottom layer selected, I'm going to go back to my brush tool. I'm going to scale up my brush. I'm doing the brackets, but you can scale up the size if you want. The bracket keys will scale up and down. And with this, let's just go ahead and kind of harness a little, add some gradient to it. Creates that little look. I'm going to go to the top and do the same thing. Okay. So now that we have our background set, obviously there's fine tuning that could be done, maybe not as black or harsh, but for the sake that looks pretty cool. So I'm going to go back to my card. Let's turn it back on. Now, what we're going to do with the card selected is go back to screen. All right. So we got the black to go away. Now let's turn those cards on, the extra layers. And that is it. That's essentially how I created, this card. But what I want to do is blur the back a little bit. If you go look at my example, back has a nice blur to it. That way, when it's not blurred, it's a little hard to read this card. So with these layers selected, I'm going to select both of them and merge them. So select one, hold shift, select the other, right click, merge layers. Now with these layers merged, I'm going to go up to my filter, go to blur, Gaussian blur. And I typically go with, 4.3. It can be 4.5, 5, whatever it is, the higher the more, blurry it's going to be, obviously. So it's looking pretty rad. Let's shift it up, maybe down a little bit, just because I want this to kind of fall behind there. I will say the black is a little harsh, but for the sake of this tutorial, that's okay. So that in a nutshell, let's go ahead and pump up the saturation. So with the card selected, I'm going to hit Control U, Command U will bring up your hue and saturation. Just bring it up a little bit. I don't want to overdo it. I want it to pop a little bit. So with the background selected, bring up the saturation a little bit. Bam. That's it. That's how I created that image. So it looks super dope. It's pretty easy, Does take a little bit of work. You will notice one thing. can see a little bit of the edge here. So let's select that card. I'm going to go to my eraser tool. So I'm going to hit E, brings up my eraser. I'm going to right click to bring up the settings of my eraser. I want the hardness to be the 0. And I'm going to scale the eraser up. I'm just going to kind of feather that out a little bit. Go all the way up. You can't see it too much up there at all. I know it's there. Erase that edge, but have a nice feather on it. There it is. And bam. Control 0. Move it back out. And that's how I created that image. So I'm going to show you now how I do the second part of my layout, which is this card. Very same, same principles apply, but a little bit different. So I have all my different slab mags kind of already, ready to go if it's an SGC or a tag. So this is the tag white. What I'm going to do is place that card, file, place embed, find the card. All right. So all I want is just the slab. So first thing I'm going to do is rasterize it. I'm going to right click on the layer, rasterize, go to my marquee tool, which is M on the keyboard, and just select, a little bit of the slab. And you can see that there's a bit of a perspective skew on their image, but I'll show you how to get rid of that. So with the card selected, marquee tool, I'm going to copy, paste. So now we have just the card. Let's go ahead and get rid of that back layer. All right. Thing you're going to want to do is drag it below tag frame. Now I'm going to scale it up. I'm going to hold the Alt key as I'm doing this. I want to place it to where I see a little bit of the slab edge. I'm holding the Shift whenever I go to these, corners. Now what you're going to notice is how like this top right is a little bit more in than the bottom. So to get rid of that, what you need to do is select the card. And when you go over to this corner, you can see how it's got this. I'm going to hold just the Alt or the Control key, which might be the Command. And you'll see how it changes the selection. So when it's like this, now we control just this corner. So I'm going to drag it over, drag it up just a little bit. So now we have this really clean, tight line all the way down. And the top looks pretty flush as well. Hit Enter. Now I'll use my arrow keys to kind of move the card around, tighten it up. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, pretty clean. Okay, you can see some of the corners are poking out, so I'm going to get my eraser tool. I'm going to hit the E. Just delete that. And that was just from, my initial design. Or initial card, I'm sorry. So now that we have the card, I want to get the background created. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and saturate this. So I'm going to hit the Control U, which brings up the saturation. Add a little bit of saturation just to make it pop a little bit. I'm also going to sharpen it. So with the card selected, I'm going to go to Filter, Sharpen, Smart Sharpen, and I just bring that up to about 50, and kind of see what it does. Makes it look much cleaner. All right. So now to make the background, you could just duplicate this layer. So Control J. Now this bottom layer, I'm going to drag it. It's already below. Now I'm going to scale it up. It's up to you on what part of the card you want to show. Scale, bring this up maybe. And we'll change this whenever we do our overlay settings. I don't really want to show the logo. Alright. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to blur the background. Filter, Gaussian Blur, which is on the blur, Gaussian Blur. Alright. So now to get the black to go away in this card, again, we'll go click on that layer, go to your layer style, and go to screen. But we ran into the same problem as earlier. It takes the black out of the card. So let me show you what to do there. Back under normal, we're going to go to our pen tool and let's trace out the card. So with this layer selected, go to your pen tool and select the card. Get as tight as possible, of course. For the sake of the tutorial, I'm just cruising. Oops. Command Z, start over. Now obviously I probably want to tighten it up a little bit, but it's all good for this case. Shit. Alright, so now what we're going to do is take our pen tool. Let's select the card as tight as possible. And if I wasn't doing a tutorial, I'd be much more thorough. I'd zoom in, get a nice tight fit. Our path is closed. Let's right click, make selection. Radius is at 0. Marching ants. Now let's do a copy paste. So Control C, Control V. So now that we have this. Alright, so now that that card is on top, we're going to go back. Let's change the layer style to screen. Let's turn that card back on. So there you go. And that is essentially how I make my layouts. And you can go to the background layer, maybe drag this up, down. You know, I like to have the pink behind there. That looks pretty nice. But yeah, that's how I create my layouts. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you got any questions, problems, you know, let me know. I'm more than happy to help. But may the force be with you.